Hello, everyone. I'm Brittany Bailey, and thanks so much for joining us for this WBIR streaming special. During the summer, many of us spend more time online than normal, and that includes your children. That can make them more vulnerable to online scams and crimes. So today, we are bringing you our Click Smart Summer Series, featuring ways experts say you can keep your families safe. One of the biggest dangers when your children are online is the possible exposure to child predators. Andrew McClung explains what parents need to know and the best defense for protecting your family.
Summertime is here, and more children are online. Lieutenant Andrew Boatman with the Knoxville Police Department is also the commander of the Internet Crimes Against Children Division in Tennessee.
And kids have more free time, than we see a lot more interaction online. Our cyber tips from go up a little bit.
Boatman says the best defense for protecting children online:
a strong relationship with their kids, being open to them, being that trusted adult that they can come to when they have questions and concerns about their interactions online.
He says they have seen predators try to find children across multiple apps.
Most of those came from Meta apps, Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, but that's simply a function of the number of people on those apps. We also receive a number of complaints from TikTok and from Roblox.
This year, investigators are focusing on the acronym PAWS. P for private information stays private. A, alert a trusted adult. W, walk away from uncomfortable situations. And S, screen your friends.
We would suggest that you don't accept a friend online that you don't already know in real life. And be very cautious of third-party friends. A lot of predators will try to get close to children by pretending that they are friends with some of their other already friends.
An essential part of keeping children safe online is talking to them about the potential dangers they could see while scrolling. Predators using fake profiles is an issue that's only grown in recent years. I sat down with Jason Comboy, who is a resident agent in charge at Homeland Security Investigations, to learn more about how to spot fake profiles and what to do if you do see them.
Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, we're the largest investigative criminal agency under the Department of Homeland Security, primarily focused on cross-border crimes, and of course for the topic today, that's going to be our digital border of cybercrimes.
And this is something that is so important. Parents are talking a lot about this. We know children will be out of school for the summer, spending time online. They will communicate with people online, and they may not always know who they're talking to online, right?
That's true, and I think if we go back to pre-internet is don't talk to strangers. Right. And you really need to take your kind of human being life and put it into your digital life and realize that if you don't know that person online, then maybe we shouldn't talk to them, or at least take a moment to pause and verify. It's always kind of in the cyber world is trust, but verify. So I think this summer it'd be really good to have our parents and our trusted adults talk to our children about being safe. Not only in person, don't talk to that stranger, but online as well.
And sometimes someone can pose as a young person, and that might make the child feel like, oh, this is someone my age, this is a peer, but they might not always be who they say they are.
That's true. So online predators, they have the ability now to just sit in their homes and cast a wide net to find victims. So they'll create fake profiles, even of a different gender or color or creed, and then they'll use kind of the internet to build that persona. So our parents can go to knowtoprotect.gov, learn how to identify a fake profile, and then empower their children to see that when they're online.
And what we probably need to talk about is, yes, we know that you can find someone online and maybe not know who they are, but what is the risk in doing that? What can happen if you start communicating with someone who's not a good person?
I mean, it starts with that initial communication, and if our children are kind of lured into that grooming aspect from an online predator, it could go on for days, weeks, months. These predators will try to tell our children and victims to not tell a trusted adult and not tell law enforcement. So it all starts from the awareness aspect, that if we can tell our children this is how you report, tell a trusted adult. A lot of these social media platforms and apps, they have the features within them to report and block. And then with our Know to Protect program, that empowers our children to then talk to a trusted adult who can then report it as what we would call a cyber tip to get to law enforcement.
And digging deeper into some of the dangers online, we've seen these cases where people will meet online and then, as you said, sort of groom the child, maybe end up going to that child in person. Or we've also talked about sextortion scams. Are these some of the big things you're worried about right now?
Absolutely. We saw a huge rise in sextortion during COVID. A lot of kids were kind of forced to be at home. They were doing school online, they were gaming online, they were communicating online. And there's a wide variety of type of sextortion schemes, but the offender wants to get the victim to do something, to get something from that, an intimate image or video, and then use that against them, whether it's a financial gain or for kind of a traditional extortion scheme. And those are extremely dangerous, and that's really puts a victim in a position to where they may be afraid to report. So we want to tell our parents and our trusted adults that it's okay to tell our children to report. They're not in trouble. They're the victim.
And it's good that you pointed it out, because I wanted to get to that. Sometimes if a child realizes, oh, I'm not supposed to be talking to this person, they might be afraid to tell mom and dad.
Yeah, and that's the point of the campaign, especially the Digital Boundaries this month, is to tell our children that they're not victims, right? The online predators that's the offender, and our victims should be able to kind of confidently report to trusted adults. So that's why we say trusted adults: parents, teachers, school resource officer, police, local police department.
Well, keeping your information private is one way to protect yourself online, but there are other ways to protect your data and know what your device might be sharing without your knowledge. Let's hear once again from Jason Conboy about the steps you can take today. Good morning, and we are talking about how to protect our information online, which it just seems like everything you do online, your information is just out there everywhere. It's hard to protect it.
It is. Whether it's social media or operating on websites, it's out there. Your personal information, your locations, where you work, where you grew up. So we really, with our campaign, always in our Know to Protect, we want to show kids and parents to have the power to make those social media profiles private. Privacy is for a reason. And I think that's the #1 thing that could prevent our children from being victims online.
And getting very specific, we're talking, let's say, an Instagram account. You shouldn't just leave it open for anyone to follow you or message you. If you have a teenager, make it private. So you have to get permission to follow.
Sure, absolutely. Even when we do these presentations at schools, we always even ask the kids, like, how many of you have above 1,000 followers? And they'll raise their hand. How many of you actually know 1,000 friends? And their hands go down. So, as locking those profiles down, whether it's Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, all of them, then that actually makes it more private and more intimate, and they're interacting with people that they know from school or sports.
And of course, let's remind folks why we care about keeping our children protected and what are the dangers if they're going online, because some adults may not realize what can happen when the kids are communicating with people they don't know online.
Sure. We go back to the don't talk to strangers, and now all those strangers are online. And the online predators, they will spend hours and hours a day looking for those open public profiles. And when you look at social media accounts or even gaming accounts on an Xbox or PlayStation or Nintendo Switch, they look for those usernames that they can use and then identify those children. And then they'll try to find out who's their parents on social media, maybe try to find their dog and their interests. They can start those conversations. So really, it's giving the online predators a lot of information to go ahead and initiate those conversations and maybe start that grooming process and try to build trust with the victim.
And I've heard a lot in recent years about the dangers when it comes to online gaming, because a lot of those are sort of open. You can even talk to people online, and you may not know who you're talking to when you're online gaming. So is that something you all are focused on, especially with the younger kids?
That's an extreme threat. We know kids play games online, and what a lot of online predators will do is they'll play games online or games on, say, a mobile device like an iPad, and what they try to do is they try to what we call pivot. So they'll pivot off of the gaming platform and maybe tell a victim, hey, hit me up on Facebook Messenger or Kik or some other platform. Or maybe they even try to push them to an encrypted application, which means that those communications may not be able to be seen by that provider or even us in law enforcement. So we really want to tell kids that even if you're gaming with who you think are your friends online, once they try to pivot you offline, that's a red flag. We need to tell a trusted adult about that.
And not to try to put you on the spot and call out any specific app or game, but are there any that you guys as an organization say that maybe parents should think twice about having their children even participate in?
So this may be a crazy answer, but it's all of them. Okay. Any online predator can take a very innocent gaming app and then use that as a method to access children. We used to have to worry about strangers at playgrounds and schools, and now that playground and school is the internet, and it's any type of game on any device, any gaming platform, even a phone. It's almost like that we can't have nice things, and that's these online predators use to access our children.
Right now, Senator Marsha Blackburn is pushing a Kids Online Safety Act. It would require social media platforms to design their apps with child safety in mind. And this all comes as hundreds of special agents with the Department of Homeland Security are working to protect families and their children online. Emily Crabtree gives us a look at the local partnerships working to reduce internet crimes.
Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI, says it keeps an eye on a number of different crimes.
Really, our focus is cross-border crimes, and that could be anything from human smuggling, human trafficking, money laundering, the movement of illicit contraband like firearms or narcotics, and then for the topic of today is cybercrime.
The unit partners with the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, run by the Knoxville Police Department.
We partnered together to make sure that we're using all the abilities and capabilities of the U.S. federal government and the local departments to combat online child sexual abuse material and offenders using the internet to target victims, our children out there.
With summer break in full swing, HSI knows more kids will be online, which is why they're hoping to teach kids and parents to be tech smart.
So they're on their devices a lot. So we want to be able to kind of go out to the public, whether it's schools or here in the news or business, and talk about setting some digital boundaries for our kids. Get them outside more, be able to check in with them, make sure that they're playing safe games or they're securing their applications and they're not, talking to strangers online.
They say by teaching people how to stop a crime before it starts, we can keep our kids safer.
I really truly believe that awareness is prevention, and the more people we can educate, parents and kids, then it can prevent that amount of cyber tips, thus preventing the amount of investigations, which really, that's what we're here for, is to prevent crimes against kids.
Artificial intelligence is growing at a rapid pace, and people are using it to save time and increase productivity on homework, research, and presentations. But it can also be used to target our most vulnerable communities. AI is a growing threat in scams and deepfake images that include child sex abuse material. Back in 2023, tech companies reported nearly 5,000 cyber tips of that kind of AI-generated material. Last year, that number, though, exploded to 1.5 million. And to talk more about this growing trend, I sat down once again with Jason Conboy, the resident agent in charge at Homeland Security Investigations in Knoxville.
It's probably one of the most emerging threats that we have. Child exploitation offenders and online predators, they're always going to use and abuse emerging technologies to their advantage to victimize, our children online. So not only are they hiding from us as law enforcement, they're hiding from their friends and families and coworkers to, shield the heinous crimes they're doing. So they'll always take things like, say, the dark net or the use of cryptocurrency, or now it's a use of generative artificial intelligence or AI to produce CSAM, to maybe use it and aid them in finding victims, whereas that was a lot more challenging before.
And just so people who aren't familiar with CSAM, that's child sex abuse material.
Correct.
And that's what they're using to produce it.
Correct. They're using it to produce it. It is actually legal per federal law, so that a lot of people don't know that as well. And these offenders will use that to even have, so if they can't obtain content from a victim, they can just use a victim's, what we would call like a sanitized, non-CSAM image, and they can create that into a CSAM image and maybe use it to use a sextortion scheme or to spread it around social media, and that's really the threat now, is they can just create their own images and videos.
And so to really just put this into layman's terms here, basically they could take an image that's innocent online, just an image of a child out at a playground, and then change that image to be something much worse, and then use that to sort of victimize people.
The frightening answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they can.
And what is your advice to parents who maybe want to protect themselves from this happening? I mean, I think the question is, how do we prevent this? The internet is just so explosive. How do we protect ourselves from every threat out there?
Yeah, it goes back to what we've been talking about all week. If you have to have those public social media profiles private, we have to protect, we harden our homes and our schools with Ring cameras and school resource officers. We have to really harden our digital identities and our social media accounts. And it starts with making those public profiles private, making sure we lock that down into the people that we know and that we trust, and we want to prevent any online offenders from grabbing those images and to begin that type of exploitation of our children.
Let's talk about the investigative side of this. We were talking at the top of the segment about just the numbers have exploded. Do you have enough people to sort of track down all of the crimes that are now happening? I mean, this seems like an intensive effort to try to tackle this.
Absolutely. I mean, we are hardworking, between the federal government, our state, local partners. But it's completely understaffed. We cannot arrest ourselves out of this problem. And then when you throw in AI in the mix, and we're spending days, weeks, months trying to identify who we think is an actual child victim, just to find out that it's an AI-generated victim, which that's not a real victim. So how much time are we losing in actually trying to track down and identify the real victims that are out there of CSAM?
If people want to find out more about this, because I think a lot of us are still learning about AI in general and how it works, are there some online resources for parents?
Absolutely. I think a theme from this week, too, is as trusted adults, we can't put our head in the sand like ostriches. We can go to notoprotect.gov. You can go to the National Center for Missing Exploited Children or missingkids.org and just educate yourself. You don't have to be a subject matter expert in any of these fields, but to know a little bit of knowledge is going to go a long way to help protect our kids online.
Well, keeping children safe online matters all year long, and it all starts with education. Emily Crabtree shows us a program designed to teach children and parents the essentials of online safety.
iGuardian is our official public outreach to talk to the community about our kids being safe online.
The Department of Homeland Security wants to make sure children are staying safe online, which is why agents are holding seminars for kids in middle and high school and their parents.
And it's just to show the audience that these are the threats online. These are, what online predators will do. This is their techniques, their tactics and procedures, and what they use to try to target our children online.
Resident agent in charge Jason Conboy says he hopes these sessions help kids understand who could be lurking on the web.
We used to talk about the boogeyman in the closet under the bed, probably not there, but the online predator is the real boogeyman that's out there.
Conboy says it's hard to tell how many people have benefited from the presentations, but even the smallest pieces of feedback help steer them in the right direction.
When you leave an iGuardian presentation and people are asking questions, and then you do get some positive feedback later on from an audience that, hey, I did sit my child down. It wasn't that scary. I looked at their tablet, their phone, and we have this open line of communication. You would hope that that's the product you want at the end.
To report an incident, you can call the Know to Protect tip line at the number you see on your screen. That is 1-833-591-5669. You can also visit the Cyber Tip line at report.cybertip.org. And all information received on that tip line will be reviewed and referred to the appropriate government agency or local law enforcement for investigation. Thanks so much for watching our Click Smart Summer Series. And remember, you can always find the latest headlines on WBIR.com or right here on our WBIR streaming app. Have a great day, everyone.